All content is stupid. That's it, that's the video essay. Thanks as always to all my supporters on YouTube and Patreon, and no, okay, that isn't the video essay, obviously. But imagine if it was. I'd like to read you a short fable, On Exactitude in Science by Jorge Luis Borges. In that empire, the art of cartography attained such perfection that the map of a single province occupied the entirety of a city, and the map of the empire the entirety of a province. In time, those unconscionable maps no longer satisfied, and the Cartographers Guild struck a map of the empire whose size was that of the empire, and which coincided point for point with it. The following generations, who were not so fond of the study of cartography as their forebears had been, saw that the vast map was useless, and not without some pitilessness was it that they delivered it up to the inclemencies of sun and winters. In the deserts of the West, still today there are tattered ruins of that map, inhabited by animals and beggars. In all the land there is no other relic of the disciplines of geography. Do you ever watch, or read for that matter, someone talking about media in a way that's technically accurate, but which feels somehow wrong, and wonder what's going on? Wonder how exactly a trick is being played, or if there is one being played at all? Sometimes technically accurate stuff like this is reductive in a way that just makes you raise an eyebrow. Ryan George describing Scarlet Witch's choice to save Westview at the expense of her family's existence as
she had to say goodbye to her imaginary friends
in the WandaVision pitch meeting. Sometimes it feels a bit lazier, sticks in your craw a little more. CinemaSin's Hunger Games video summing up the symbolic suicidal checkmate Katniss and Peter force on the Capitol as
they were okay with dogs possibly killing everyone, but the berries, no way.
Sometimes, as with the example that jolted me into dusting off a 2-year-old video idea and writing this script, it makes you practically throw your arms up in disbelief. I was watching the Birdman's Exposing the Grift video series, and the latest installment included the critical drinker's summary of the second half of Marvel's Thunderbolts.
So the gang heads to New York to save Bob, but he goes a bit crazy and turns against everyone, so Discount Selena Meyer activates a kill switch, but then he comes back to life as Angry Bob and makes a big cloud of sadness that swallows up New York City. But that's okay because Discount Black Widow and the gang go into the sadness cloud and help Bob defeat Angry Bob by having a good old cry, and then
that certainly is a way of describing the film's back half. It's not inaccurate objectively, that all does happen, which is more than can be said for some of the Critical Drinkers movie summaries. Indeed, it's more than can be said for the rest of this video. But if you've seen the film, it doesn't feel right, does it? And I think even if you haven't seen Thunderbolts, you can probably tell there's more to this part of the plot than this description would have you think. For instance, you could refer to the film's climax as going into the sadness cloud to have a good old cry, or you could capture the same plot details in a different way. You could observe that it's sort of been a running joke that the real villain in a lot of latter-day MCU projects is trauma, and that Thunderbolts kind of takes this further, says, okay, but what about if that weren't a joke? What if trauma was a guy, and what if he was stronger than you? The film's climax creates in its antagonist, the Void, an embodiment of the darkness lying inside all of us, the darkness you can't just push down or beat up, that draws its strength from segmenting all of the aspects of yourself apart from one another and apart from anyone else. All of this is spatialized in the Void's labyrinth and physicalized in the way Bob's misdirected violence only drags him further down. The film's much vaunted preference for in-camera effects does a lot to sell this, to turn thematic tidiness into a vivid, implicitly believed filmic reality, as do the clearly committed performances from Thunderbolt's pretty stacked cast. You could note that all this comes together much as the film's characters do, with a unity beyond the sum of parts, communicating through these larger-than-life figures and events the truth that even our most unbearable burdens can be made manageable if borne together. That would be another way of putting it. No more factually accurate than The Critical Drinkers, sure, but I don't know, it feels like it does the film and its ideas more justice. Because no, in terms of psychological exploration, Thunderbolts isn't quite Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and hell, maybe it's not even Beef, but it is thought through, it is technically well constructed, and it is more than this, right?
By having a good old cry.
An early chapter of philosopher and critic Graham Harman's book, Weird Realism, Lovecraft and Philosophy, is titled The Problem with Paraphrase. As the book's name suggests, Harman is primarily laying the groundwork here for an extended reappraisal of H.P. Lovecraft's prose style, and here the reader is introduced to the words of famous critic Edmund Wilson, who had dismissed At the Mountains of Madness for concerning semi-invisible polypus monsters that uttered a shrill whistling sound and blasted their enemies with terrific winds. Such creatures would look very well on the covers of pulp magazines, Wilson continued, but they do not make good adult reading. In response, Harman points out that one could semi-reasonably sum up Dante's Inferno as being about an aging Italian poet lost in a forest who's whisked away on a ghostly tour to see Satan eating people's heads, and so on. None of that Dante literalizing is inaccurate, everything described is there in the original text, and I don't think it even feels right to call it lying by omission. All the same, any literature, even the greatest, is easily belittled by such a method, Harman writes. The mere fact that a work of art can be literalized in this manner is no evidence against its quality. It's the same with Wilson's summary of Lovecraft. It's not factually inaccurate, but for Harman, it's precisely the subtleties of meaning that are eroded by paraphrase that make Lovecraft's prose great, that make Wilson's subsequent judgment wrong. You can sum up the what, but sometimes in doing so, the how is lost. The roots of this problem run far deeper than paraphrase, though. In the following chapter, Harman brings up a related case, Slavoj Žižek's issue with John Durbin's Shakespeare Made Easy study guides. He quotes the Slovenian as saying, Durbin tries to formulate directly, in everyday locution, what he considers to be the thought expressed in Shakespeare's metaphorical idiom. To be or not to be, that is the question, becomes something like, what's bothering me now is, shall I kill myself or not? Žižek had explored a similar idea previously, the irreducibility of proverbs, and Harman notes this too, before contending that by focusing in on Lovecraft or Shakespeare or proverbs, we're missing the forest for the trees, because the problem extends across the entire field of literal statement. Indeed, we might speak of the inherent stupidity of all content, a phrase which gives this chapter its title. So I said above you can sum up the what, but that might not even be the case, not really, not accurately. In a sense, any claim will fail to faithfully capture the truth of the reality it describes because reality is analog and claims are more or less discrete. As Harman writes, reality is not made of statements. Recall Borges' fable. The Empire's map only grew to become truly 100% accurate as it became the land it represented. Attempting to squeeze a reality into any form of verbal content, paraphrases, longer descriptions, laborious studies alike, necessarily distorts it. It's like recording music playback. Take a song. Putting YouTube compression to one side for a moment, this video contains a more or less pure version of a mixed and mastered performance there. But if I play a record and pick it up through my camera mic and put that in the video, the same original is degraded, fidelity is lost. And there's really no end to how low resolution, how stupid our representations can get. And that's the concept. Well, the ruthlessly oversimplified version of it, at least. The irony of this is not lost on me, but what Harman's really driving at with his discussion is frankly beyond us here. He is the object-oriented ontology guy. It was never going to be straightforward, and I don't think any of you want this video to get bogged down in Husserl and Lacan, so we'll make do with the vulgarized fragment of the idea I've just laid out. That's the concept, and all we really have to do with it is bear it in mind, stow it away somewhere in the media literacy filing cabinet of our brains. Know from now on that when it comes to passing claims about art, about the world even, we shouldn't necessarily limit our critical gaze to the ways certain platforms, certain content types incentivize or are vulnerable to misleading or inflammatory rhetorical strategies. We also have to consider that there might be elements more fundamental to the way we communicate and the way we communicate about art that can be used or misused in a variety of ways. Ways sometimes more benign, and sometimes more malignant. But isn't all that a little too neat? Harman's phrase, this video's title, is the inherent stupidity of all content, right? Not just the content we don't like. We're all using maps. Many of us are making maps, and none of them are life-size. Whenever I do the video essayist thing, for instance, claim that X media is about Y, Prey is about killing aliens. Am I not doing a version of this same thing? Do we not all commit a version of this literalizing, this stupidizing every time we describe or state? Well, yes. But also, we don't, right? Like I suggested above, I am, in a sense, doing it to Harman's version of this very idea, the inherent stupidity of all content. In hijacking this idea and attempting to extricate one part of it from the complex philosophical architecture entwined with Harman's treatment of it, I am aiming to simplify it, and maybe I'm succeeding, but I am also modifying it. And I have to recognize that, at least tacitly, to have a discussion like this in good faith. And I think that's what's most important here. Inevitably, describing or discussing things, particularly art and media, is going to involve reduction, making it stupider. But not all of that reduction is alike. You're always squashing, very often you're bending, but you can bend with the grain or you can bend against it. When you're writing, and often even when you're watching a video that squashes art or reality or an idea down and then does something with that squashed thing, part of you knows if the way that squashing has been done feels fair. In this video, I am summarizing, I am modifying Harman's idea, but I'm doing so in an attempt to bend it in a way I think is useful, opens up wider applicability, and maybe most importantly, in a way I feel is not unfaithful to the spirit of the thing. Despite the financial and algorithmic incentives of creating on this platform maybe obscuring my self-perception and volition, I am able to make that judgment, and so can most of us. Because even as creators of content, deep down in our guts, we can tell whether we're simply caught up in the inherent stupidity of all content, or if we're taking advantage of it. Really, the key question is this. When you describe a reality, make a claim, are you boiling it down, making it stupider because fundamentally you can't not do that at least a little bit? Are you doing so to break off a dumber, ruder version of that reality that nevertheless contains something of the original spirit? Are you doing so as a shortcut to humor? Or are you doing so to create a deliberately low-res version of something that's more easily dismissed, essentially forming a new sort of straw man, a pixel man, if you will? You don't need to answer that question explicitly every time you engage in speech or writing, of course. But as writers, or as audience members, I think it is sometimes worthwhile to bear in mind the fact that this question exists. And especially to do so on the internet. Because maybe the only thing inherently stupider than content is content. Thanks for watching. Special shout out as always to everyone supporting the channel with a YouTube or Patreon membership. The names on screen now, especially Hanan, Daniel Goldhorn, Kwang Yu Liu, Something Capitalism Bad, Thomas R, and Weirdy Beardy. If you'd also like to help the channel continue and continue to try out new ways of doing things, you can do so from as little as £2 a month at patreon.com/c/pillarofgarbage.